If you know me, you were probably waiting for this to be on the list. Paranormal Activity and I just keep running into each other. But it's not just the found footage part that makes this a good movie, it's a lot of other things as well. It has great characters, it has great effects, it literally shows you step by step the haunting getting worse, but it doesn't drag because of its format. More than any other movie here, this film just feels like real life. And once again, that's not just because of the first person found footage thing. Katie Featherston and Mika Sloat do a wonderful job, playing less characters and more like a real couple. Compared to other films on this list, not a lot actually happens in Paranormal Activity, but I guarantee that you will not be bored. And you know you're in a good genre when Paranormal Activity barely cracks the top 5. Honestly, this is what I feel that The Shining should have been.
It does have the vague air of menace. Nobody lasts more than an hour.
1408 is basically the story of taking someone who firmly doesn't believe in ghosts and putting them in a place that is not only very haunted, but very evil. Room 1408 eventually becomes a kind of character, this really demonic evil force determined to torture and destroy any person who dare enter it. It becomes clear immediately that 1408 does not mess around at all. There is no escape. Hauntings don't just start small and get big, they start big and get worse as the movie goes on. But besides the location, we also have John Cusack playing our main character. He does a pretty good job selling his character very well. As the movie progresses, we see his character slowly break. He tries everything, but no matter what he does, there is no way out. The first 2 acts of the movie are executed extremely well. But then there's the ending, what stopped this movie from being at least in the top 2. Like in many Stephen King stories, the build-up is tremendous, but it kind of fizzles out at the end. It's not a bad ending, it just feels off. I honestly don't know how I would end the story, and apparently the director didn't know either, considering that this movie has 3 alternate endings. But even with the ending, this is an excellent horror film, expertly creating a world where there is no outside. There is only room 1408. Before we get to number 3, let's talk about a director named James Wan. He got the world's attention with Saw, which got mixed reviews, and got some praise with Insidious, which was generally viewed as good but not great. James Wan for a while was notable but not terribly important. But this year he hit the jackpot.
71, I'm sitting here with Carolyn Perrin, who, with her family, has been experiencing supernatural occurrences. You picking up anything in here, hon?
Something awful happened here, Ed.
The ultimate problem with Insidious was that it didn't seem to know what story it was trying to tell or in what tone that story would be told. That's not the case with The Conjuring. This movie knows exactly what it's doing. Like the Amityville Horror, The Conjuring was supposedly based off of a real story, but that's not why it's so good. The Conjuring is good for 2 reasons. First are the characters. We have Ed and Lorraine Warren, played by Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson, who are very likable and refreshingly down-to-earth considering their occupation. But the real standout here is Lily Taylor as the mother of the haunted family. I loved her in this movie. She was dramatic, sympathetic, and at times very scary. This brings us to the second notable thing about The Conjuring, the fear factor. When it comes to horror, this movie got nearly everything right, with a wonderful direction and pacing. It's odd to put such a new film on this list, let alone this high, but The Conjuring is really that good, and I hope James Wan makes more films this good in the future. On the surface, number 2 seems like a pretty standard haunted house movie, but there are plenty of things that set it apart from the others.
As you can see, the housework has been rather neglected since the servants disappeared almost a week ago.
Do you mean they just vanished?
Into thin air.
The Others is a movie about a family experiencing strange things in their house, but like most great haunted house movies, there's a lot more to it than that. One thing to note is that the two kids in the family have this really strange disease that basically turns them into vampires. A disease that apparently exists. Seriously, they get exposed to too much light and then they just rash up and die. That's a lot of baggage and drama before the hauntings even begin. Actually, the family aspect is played up a lot here and is done extremely well. This is mostly due to Nicole Kidman, whose performance is one of the high points of this flick. But that doesn't mean the horror aspect is still very well done. Like many films on this list, the fear comes from things that the audience doesn't see, and that is used particularly well in the others. However, the best part of this movie is the twist at the end. It's dramatic, chilling, and a good balance of both happy and sad. That's a good word to sum up the film overall: balance. It balances different elements extremely well, resulting in one of the greatest haunted house movies of all time. But not the greatest. For that, join me at number 1. This film requires no introduction.
Whose hand was I holding?
Directed by Robert Wise, whose movies you've probably heard of, The Haunting is about a scientist and a group of people staying in a supposedly haunted house to determine whether ghosts are real or not. The movie revolves around Eleanor, a woman who's under a lot of strain and has a very dark past. This movie makes the audience often wonder if what is happening is paranormal or just in Eleanor's head. And this is a great angle for a horror film, because you're constantly wondering what is real and what isn't real. This movie also has the best location. The sets in this movie are wonderful. If there is a haunted house, this is what it would look like. But above all, I love the direction in this movie. The cinematography, the editing, and the writing all work together for a very spooky atmosphere. This is the quintessential haunted house movie. It's scary, it's atmospheric, and is a great psychological study. I'm not going to say it's perfect, but at the same time, I would be hard-pressed to think of any changes that would make this movie better. The Haunting has been awesome for 50 years, and it's gonna stay awesome for 50 more. Goodbye, and happy Halloween.